Long ago, in a quiet African village nestled between lush forest and a mighty river, there lived a young woman named Akila. She was different from the other women in the village. While they spent their days weaving, cooking, and tending to the children, Akila was drawn to the water. The river, wide and powerful, called to her in ways she could not explain. Akila had lost her parents when she was just 2 years old. Her father, a fisherman, had gone to the river one evening and never returned. Some said he had drowned, others whispered that the river had taken him. Her mother, stricken with grief, wasted away until sorrow carried her to the ancestors. Left alone, Akila grew up under the care of kind neighbors who fed her strong fufu and watery soup, but she never truly belonged anywhere. She found solace in the river. As Akila grew older, she became fascinated by the fishermen who paddled their canoes onto the water every morning. Their nets glistened in the sunlight, their laughter echoed over the waves. But they never welcomed her. Fishing is not for women, they sneered. Go and learn how to pound yam or weave baskets, but Akila ignored them. She had no mother to teach her how to be a proper woman, no father to guide her. What she had was her father's old fishing rope, hidden in the corner of their abandoned hut. The day she picked it up was the day she decided to carve her own path. She learned by watching the men. She practiced by throwing her rope into the water, struggling to pull in small fish, and failing many times. But she did not give up. Over time, her hands became steady, her grip strong, her heart fearless. Then, one morning, something incredible happened. She caught a fish. A big one. The men stared in shock. Some muttered under their breath. Others laughed. But they were no longer laughing at a silly girl, they were laughing out of jealousy. As the days passed, Akila caught more fish, bigger than the ones the men brought home. The fisherman grew restless. Look at her, one scoffed. She acts like a man, what a smelly girl, another sneered. Who will marry such a dirty person? Their words did not hurt Akila. But their eyes, dark, full of resentment, made her uneasy. Then came the warning, you must stop fishing, one of the older fishermen growled. This river is not for you. Find something else to do before we deal with you. Akila did not respond. She simply paddled her canoe to the water as she always did. The next morning, the fisherman gathered around her canoe as she prepared to cast her rope. Go away, one barked. Go to the deeper end. We don't want you here, Akila pleaded. The river is big. There is space for everyone, but they refused to listen. So, from that day, Akila paddled far away, beyond the familiar stretch of water, into the deeper end of the river. At first, the deeper waters were quiet. The trees stood tall along the shore, their shadows stretching over the river, like protective arms. The air smelled of fresh fish and damp earth, but Akila felt lonely. She missed the chatter of the men, even their mockery. She missed the hum of the village behind her. Here, in the deep waters, she was completely alone. Then, it happened. The river trembled. A great splash erupted nearby. The water churned wildly. Akila turned just in time to see a massive fish, larger than any creature she had ever seen, rise from the depths. Its scales shone like silver, its eyes glowed like fire. Before she could scream, its enormous mouth opened, and it swallowed her whole. Akila tumbled into nothingness, her body weightless, lost in the belly of the beast. The air was thick, damp, and smelled of salt and decay. Around her, she saw bones, remnants of creatures that had been swallowed before her. Then, deep laughter echoed through the cavern. You have entered the belly of the river beast, a voice rumbled. No one lives without sacrifice. Akila swallowed hard. She had heard stories about the beast, told by trembling elders at night. It was said to be ancient, powerful, and merciless. What must I do to survive? She asked. The beast chuckled, its voice shaking the walls of its belly. You must give up what is most precious to you. Akila thought of her father's fishing rope, the only thing she had left of him. She felt its rough fibers against her palm. Could she let it go? She hesitated. Then, slowly, she unwrapped the rope from her wrist and placed it on the ground. I give up my father's legacy so that I may create my own. The beast roared, the walls trembled, and suddenly, Akila was thrown upward, expelled from the depths with a force so strong that she burst through the surface of the river. Akila gasped as fresh air filled her lungs. She had survived, but something had changed. She looked at her hands, and gasped. Her skin shimmered like silver fish scales. The village elder came running, his face pale. She carries the mark of the river beast, he whispered. She's the daughter of the river now. Akila stared at her reflection in the water. Her body was different. She had been touched by the beast. You can never leave the river again, the elder said. It has claimed you, Akila understood. She had made a sacrifice, and the river had taken her in return. She would fish forever, not as a village girl mocked by men, but as the guardian of the deep. The village elders stood in a tight circle, their wrinkled faces heavy with fear and suspicion. Akila had returned from the belly of the river beast, but she was no longer the same. Her skin shimmered in the sunlight. Her presence seemed to carry the weight of the river itself. She must leave, the oldest among them declared. The spirits have touched her. She is not one of us anymore. The villagers, terrified of what Akila might become, wasted no time. They went to her father's abandoned hut, gathered the few belongings she had, her sleeping mat, her clay pot. They carried everything to the riverbank and dumped them in the sand. This is your place now, one of the fishermen said, avoiding her gaze. Do not return to the village. Akila stood silently as they walked away, their backs stiff with fear. The people she had grown up with, the ones who had fed her when she had no parents, who had watched her grow, had turned their backs on her. Her heart felt heavy. But she did not cry. She picked up her belongings one by one and laid them neatly by the water's edge. She had always belonged to the river. Now, it was truly her home. Days turned into weeks, and Akila learned to live by the water. She spent her mornings fishing, casting her enchanted rope into the depths where no other fisherman dared to go. The fish she caught were larger than any seen before in the village. Their scales glowed in the sunlight, their meat rich and tender. She built a small wooden hut with her bare hands, gathering fallen branches and weaving strong reeds to form its walls. It was not much, but it was enough. Each evening, she roasted her fish over an open flame, and the scent of sizzling flesh drifted into the village. The villagers whispered about her. She is no longer human, one murmured. Only the gods know what evil spirits live inside her now. Another added, no one survives being swallowed by a fish, said a third. She must be cursed. Akila heard them. She felt their fear like the cold wind that swept over the river at night. But she never spoke back. She never defended herself. Instead, she focused on her survival. One night, as she lay inside her canoe, staring at the stars above, she felt the weight of her fate pressing down on her. She was alone, truly alone. Cast away, feared, unwanted, she thought about her father. Had he suffered the same fate? Had the river taken him because he belonged to it? Just as it had taken her, she thought about her mother, wasting away in sorrow. Had she felt the same loneliness that Akila now carried? Was she cursed? A strong wind howled across the water, biting at her skin, making her shiver. She hugged herself for warmth, her silver-marked hands pressing against her arms. She closed her eyes and made a decision. She would never let the village decide her fate again. She would make her own path. Tomorrow, she would build something stronger. At sunrise, Akila gathered reeds, sticks, and mud. She worked tirelessly, her fingers weaving the materials together, her muscles aching with the effort. By noon, she had built a sturdy hut, a home that would stand against the river winds. She made her fire larger, placed her fish on sharpened sticks, and roasted them until the golden brown flesh crackled under the heat. The aroma spread through the air, creeping into the village like an uninvited guest. The villagers smelled it. They tried to ignore it. But hunger gnawed at their bellies. One afternoon, a child wandered too close to the river. Akila spotted him from her canoe. He was small, his arms stained with hunger. He stared at her roasted fish, licking his lips. Akila did not speak. She simply took a piece and placed it on a flat rock near the water. The boy hesitated. Then, cautiously, he crept forward, grabbed the fish, and ran back to the village clutching the fish Akila had left for him. His small hands trembled as he tore into the flesh, juices dripping down his chin. It was unlike any fish he had ever tasted, rich, smoky, and infused with the fiery tang of fresh pepper. His mother gasped when she saw him eating. "Where did you get that?" she asked, pulling him close. The boy swallowed hard. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Akila," gasps filled the air. The women shrank back, clutching their children. The men exchanged uneasy glances. "She fed you?" one of them asked. The boy nodded. "And she didn't harm you?" Again, he nodded. A murmur spread through the village like ripples in water. Perhaps Akila was not a monster after all. Perhaps she was simply different. But fear still lingered. The mothers warned their children to stay away. The elders still spoke in harsh tones about the curse that clung to her skin, and so Akila remained alone, living by the river, tending to her small patch of land where she grew onions, peppers, and green vegetables. Her hut stood firm, her canoe rested beside it, and every evening, the scent of roasted fish drifted across the water, far beyond the huts. In the grand palace that overlooked the village, a young prince had just returned from the big city. His name was Ola, and he was unlike any royal before him. He had seen bustling streets, towering buildings, and the endless hum of life beyond his home. But now, back in the village, everything felt slow, suffocating. His father, the king, warned him on his first evening back. "You must never go to the river alone," the king said. "And never speak to the girl who lives there. She is cursed." Ola had heard the stories about her just like everyone else. But he had never seen Akila. He had never smelled the strange, irresistible aroma that wafted from the riverbank each evening, until one night, as he walked through the palace courtyard, a scent curled through the air, rich, smoky, enticing. His stomach rumbled. "What is that?" he asked one of the guards. The man shivered. "Akila's fish," Ola frowned. "The river girl," the guard nodded quickly. "You must not go near her, my prince. She is dangerous," but Ola was not one to listen to warnings. He followed the scent, slipping past the palace gates, moving swiftly through the trees until he reached the riverbank, and there she was, Akila crouched over a crackling fire, turning fish over sharpened sticks. The flesh glistened, juices sizzling in the flames. Beside her, freshly chopped peppers and onions lay in neat piles, ready to be sprinkled over the roasted meat. Ola stepped forward. "Good evening, please can I have a taste of your fish?" he said. Akila froze, her fingers gripping the stick. She looked up, eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" she asked. "Are you not from this village? Everyone avoids me." "Why do you want to eat my fish?" Ola smiled, taking a seat on a nearby stone. "Because it smells delicious. And because I am not afraid." Akila watched him carefully, unsure whether to trust his words. But after a moment, she picked up a fish, placed it on a flat rock, and slid it toward him. "Eat," she said simply. Ola took a bite, and his eyes widened. The fish melted in his mouth, bursting with heat and flavor. "This is the best thing I have ever tasted," he murmured. Akila smirked. "I know." For the first time in years, someone shared a meal with her. He did not shrink away. He did not stare at her skin with fear. They spoke, slowly at first, then easily, like old friends. Ola told her of the city, its noise, its endless lights. Akila told him of the river, its secrets, its depths, and every night after that, Ola returned. The villagers noticed. They whispered about the prince, slipping away each night, visiting the cursed girl. Has she bewitched him? One asked. She is dangerous, another said. He must stay away, but Ola ignored them. He brought Akila gifts, spices from the palace, soft cloth to lay over her hot floor. He learned how to fish, how to gut and clean with precision. Akila laughed for the first time in years, and without realizing it, they fell in love. One evening, Ola did not return to the palace. The king noticed. He followed the guards and searched for him, and when they found him by the river, sitting beside Akila, eating her roasted fish, the king was furious. "You have disobeyed me," the king roared. "You will bring ruin upon yourself." Ola stood, shielding Akila. "She is no monster," he said. "She is just a woman." The king's eyes burned with anger. "You will never see her again," he declared. "She must leave the river. Leave this village." Akila felt her heart crack. "Where will I go?" she whispered. Ola clenched his fist. "No," he said. "She stays." But the king was unmoved. The river rumbled. The next morning, Akila was gone. Prince Ola had never been the same since Akila's disappearance. His once bright eyes had dulled. His laughter had vanished, and he barely touched his meals. The palace halls, once alive with his presence, grew silent. The queen watched him with deep worry, pleading with him to eat, to speak, to live, but Ola only shook his head, gazing out the window toward the river. "If she is gone, I have no reason to live," he whispered one evening, his voice barely audible. The queen gasped, clutching her chest. The king's face hardened with fear. They had never seen their son like this. He was their only child, the heir to the throne. They couldn't lose him, and so, without hesitation, the king summoned his guards. "Find Akila," he ordered. "Search the forest, the riverbanks, wherever she may be. Bring her back alive." For 5 days, the search party combed the land. They waded through thick bushes, crossed small streams, and ventured deep into the forest where no villagers dared to go. The days were hot, their bodies weary. The nights were cold, their hope dwindling. Then, on the 5th day, they found her. Akila lay curled beneath an old tree, her skin pale, her body frail from hunger and thirst. Her clothes clung to her like thin rags, and her lips were cracked from dryness. One of the guards rushed forward, pouring water into her mouth. Akila coughed, swallowing greedily. "We found her," one of them shouted. Carefully, they lifted her, carrying her through the thick undergrowth back to the village. As soon as they entered the palace gates, Prince Ola spotted them. His heart leapt, and before the guards could lower Akila to the ground, he ran forward, pulling her into his arms. "I missed you so much, my love," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Akila tried to speak, but she was too weak. She rested against him, letting his warmth surround her. The palace maids hurried to tend to her, feeding her nourishing soups, bathing her in scented water, dressing her in fine silks that shimmered like the river at dawn. Days passed, and Akila slowly regained her strength. When Ola saw her standing again, her skin glowing with health, he smiled and held her close. "My love, you look astonishing," he said. Akila met his gaze, gratitude filling her heart. "Thank you," she murmured. But while the prince basked in happiness, the king watched with hidden fury. He had saved his son, but at what cost? One cold evening, the king summoned Mama Yokota, the feared native doctor of the village. Her presence alone sent shivers through the palace walls. Draped in dark cloth, she entered the king's chambers with a knowing smile. "You wish to control your son?" she asked, her voice like the hiss of wind through dry leaves. The king nodded sharply. "He is blind with love. He cannot think, cannot lead. Give me something to make him forget her." Mama Yokota's lips curled wickedly as she reached into her leather pouch. From within, she pulled a small gourd filled with a dark, thick liquid. "Place this in his drink," she instructed. "Once he swallows, he will obey your every command. His love will fade like mist in the morning sun." The king took the gourd, gripping it tightly. His face remained unreadable, but inside, his heart pounded with uncertainty. The next evening, the king prepared Ola's drink himself. He poured the dark liquid into his son's palm wine, watching it swirl like shadows. He summoned Ola to the royal table, smiling stiffly as the prince Saturday. "Drink," the king said. "You must celebrate your happiness and health, my son." Ola lifted the cup, unaware of his father's deception, but as the rim touched his lips, a sudden gust of wind blew through the palace. The flames in the lanterns flickered wildly. Something terrible was about to happen, and neither the prince nor Akila knew that they were being bound by a fate darker than they had ever imagined. Prince Ola took a sip of his wine, unaware that it had been mixed with a dark charm. At first, he felt nothing strange. But when Akila returned from her evening walk by the river, something inside him changed. He looked at her with disgust. Her skin, once beautiful to him, now seemed rough and ugly, like fish scales. His love for her, strong just moments ago, faded in an instant. Akila was shocked. "What is wrong?" she asked, stepping closer. Ola pulled away, frowning. "You look terrible," he said coldly. "I don't know how I ever loved you." Akila's heart shattered. She tried to hold his hand, to remind him of their love, but he pushed her away. A few days later, Prince Ola made a shocking announcement. He sent the town crier to declare that he was searching for a wife. The village was filled with excitement. A grand dance competition was arranged, where the most beautiful maidens gathered to impress the prince. They dressed in colorful cloth, adorned themselves with beads, and danced with elegance and grace. The prince watched with a smile. Akila, desperate, pleaded with the king and queen. "Something is wrong with him," she cried. "Please, stop this," but they ignored her. The king grew impatient with her begging. "You will not disturb this ceremony," he shouted. "Guards, take her away." The guards grabbed Akila and dragged her to the local prison, a small, filthy room that smelled of damp earth and stale air. She was locked inside, her cries unheard, and outside, the dance continued. At the end of the competition, Prince Ola picked his bride, a young woman named Maleki. She was beautiful. But there was more to her than her looks. She was the daughter of Mama Yokota, the evil native doctor. The king's face darkened when he heard the name. He knew Mama Yokota had tricked him. She had not only given him the dark potion, she had also used her own magic to manipulate the prince into choosing her daughter. That night, furious and restless, the king summoned Mama Yokota. "You cannot tell me this is a coincidence," he shouted. "You made my son choose Maleki." Mama Yokota smiled wickedly. "Yes," she admitted. "I want my daughter to be the next queen. But don't act like you are innocent. You started this." The king fell silent. He had been played, and now, he could do nothing to stop it. Days passed, and preparations for the wedding began. Maleki, proud of her victory, paraded through the village with other maidens, announcing herself as the new queen. "Bow before me," she demanded. "Show me respect," the villagers murmured among themselves. Though they feared speaking out loud, they knew something was wrong. The prince had loved Akila. How could he forget her so quickly? Meanwhile, the king sat alone in his chambers, filled with regret. "Oh, what have I done?" he whispered to himself. "There is no way out of this." On the day of the wedding, the palace was beautifully decorated. There was plenty to eat and drink: roasted chicken, sweet rice, soft fufu, and richly flavored soups. Mama Yokota sat proudly in her finest black attire, her face painted in a wicked manner. But far away, in the local prison, Akila stood in sorrow. Then, something strange happened. A mermaid appeared before her, her eyes kind and glowing with power. She reached forward, touching Akila gently. Immediately, the fish scales on Akila's skin disappeared. Akila gasped, feeling her smooth skin return. She looked at the mermaid, tears of gratitude filling her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. The mermaid smiled before vanishing, and just as the king was about to pronounce Prince Ola and Maleki husband and wife, the mermaid reappeared. Gasps filled the air as the mermaid's voice rang through the crowd. "The king used a charm to manipulate his son into hating Akila," she declared. The villagers were stunned. The mermaid continued. "And Mama Yokota used her own magic to make the prince choose her daughter," people whispered frantically. As darting from the king to Mama Yokota, Akila was freed from the prison and stepped into the crowd, standing tall. But the mermaid wasn't finished. She turned to the king. "You were the one who plotted with Mama Yokota to kill Akila's father." Shock rippled through the crowd. The king hated Akila's father because he spoke boldly during meetings, the mermaid revealed. And so, he ordered Mama Yokota to bury him behind her hut. A wave of horror spread through the villagers. Akila covered her mouth, trembling with grief. The mermaid turned to her. "Akila, you are a child of the water. and I will always protect you. No harm will come to you again." She blew air onto the prince. At once, the dark spell was broken. Ola blinked, confused. He looked at Akila, and suddenly, he remembered everything. His love rushed back into his heart. He ran toward Akila, pulling her into his arms. "I am so sorry," he whispered. "I love you," Akila sobbed against his chest. She had suffered so much. The evil Mama Yokota and her proud daughter Malaki were banished from the village. The king was thrown into the local prison. While the queen tearfully apologized for foolishly following his wicked plans, the ceremony, once meant for Malaki, now became a grand wedding for Akila and Prince Ola. The village erupted in celebration. People danced, feasted, and cheered. It was a night to remember, and later, under the shining moon, Ola was crowned the new king. Akila, at last, became his queen. Years passed, and they had many children, ruling the village with wisdom and love. And under King Ola's rule, the village prospered. Akila introduced new fishing methods, taught people how to harness the river's gifts, and ensured that no one ever went hungry. The people adored her. Their story became a legend, told and retold, passed down through generations, a tale of love, a tale of pain. A tale of the girl who had once been cast away, but rose to become the queen of the land. True love cannot be destroyed. Despite magic, manipulation, and betrayal, Akila and Prince Ola's love endured. Love built on truth and loyalty always finds its way back. Justice always prevails. The truth was hidden for years, but in the end, evil was exposed, and justice was served. No matter how powerful wicked people seem, they cannot escape the truth forever. Strength comes from within. Akila suffered greatly, yet she never gave up. She proved that resilience, hard work, and self-belief can turn even the darkest moments into victory. Greed and deception lead to ruin. The king and Mama Yokota tried to control fate, but their selfishness led to their downfall. Manipulation may bring temporary success, but it never lasts. Do not judge others based on fear or gossip. The villagers feared Akila simply because she was different. But in the end, she proved that she was not a monster but a queen. We must always seek the truth before forming opinions about people. Forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds. Despite everything, Akila forgave the villagers, embraced love, and ruled with wisdom. Holding on to hatred only causes more suffering. Food for thought. Imagine living a life where you are feared for something that is not your fault. How would you respond? If you had the choice to fight for love or walk away, what would you do? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Please like and share this story with your friends and loved ones. I really appreciate you all for your constant support. Do not forget to subscribe if you haven't. Anticipate more interesting stories from this channel. See you soon. Bye for now.